All right, I will share my screen so you can see the lovely slides that I have.
Amazing, amazing.
There you go. All righty. So I hope you've all been enjoying the accelerator so far, finding lots of value on building out your projects. If any point you have any questions, please feel free just to be able to jump in. Happy to help answer any of them, whether in the chat or just by voice. I'm going to be talking a little bit about how and why and where you want to be building on Solana, what that can kind of look like, lessons that we've taken from working with tons of teams on ways to be able to approach it, some best strategies, some good resources and links to be able to look at. So if that sounds all good. Myself, so I'm Cap, so I'm the lead of Superteam UK. Superteams was set up by the Solana Foundation back in 2021, basically as like their new markets team. A bit more decentralized, but a way of how do you find people all across the world and enable any local leader to be able to help support onboard the next batch. Very focused on founders and talent and helping them to be able to win on Solana. So over the last couple of years, we've done over 450 events, 15,000 people, been pretty epic, helped people earn over $1 million, done lots of cool stuff. Before this, I worked at a marketing agency that was acquired by Stephen Bartlett, and before that as like a student entrepreneur. But alas, I want to talk first about kind of the vision of Solana, a little bit of where it is at the moment, and then I'll dive into where I think kind of the 4 main areas where you should focus on when you're thinking about building and like launching on top of Solana. And then the general vision that Solana has is this idea of internet capital markets, which would be that everyone with a mobile phone and an internet connection should be able to buy any asset. And this looks then like a single network that can hold every asset on any market. And when you're building your project, if you can relate to this thesis and narrative, there's a very strong space there for you to be able to jump into. And it's where kind of Solana's found its edge. When we then think about us as a ecosystem, we're very much more value driven. So one of the first ones here about like distribution over grants is one of the very big things that separates how the foundations and Solana operates versus maybe other ecosystems, where you're less likely to be able to get a grant from foundation. You're more likely to be able to get opportunities of distribution. So Superteams are a good example of that. We can help be an arm of distribution. The foundation does a very good job of spotlighting the top founders. We run lots of competitions like Colosseum, lots of hackathons as ways to be able to give you that early stage funding, which is also equity free. And then we're focused on how do you find those like key products that can help drive it forward, leveraging the performance and liquidity that there is there on Solana. So that ultimately you're then building an application that is generating revenue. The whole theme for Solana Breakpoint last year was revenue and returns. And that kind of like shows you like that focus that we want Solana to be that platform where you can build an incredible startup. And this is important to think about when you're launching and building on Solana, because that thesis and those values are what is then spread across everyone who's building there. And if you can understand these and you live by them and you're seeing and helping the network grow through these, you'll have the ecosystem support you and want to be able to help give back. It's a very collaborative space. Breakpoint is like a big family gathering, and so it's that place where you want to be able to help support the next person as long as we abide by the similar values. And it's been doing very well. Like this idea of internet capital markets, Solana's dominating at. We've seen tons of dev growth. We're number 1 in app revenue, different assets launching, most transactions. So it's all kind of been building over the last few years, and we're kind of now at this stride. So you're coming in at a good moment to be able to be building on Solana. And this is where you can then be able to think about like, how can you impact these metrics? How can what you be building be changing the amount of app revenue that's coming out? Being able to create and bring on new assets into the ecosystem, being able to welcome new people to be using blockchain technology and continue growing that out. Tons of cool things about the amount of revenue that's being generated. Here's a little snapshot of some of the top earning apps, and so maybe one day these could be one of you. And there's a lot of opportunity here where there's unicorns being created every single year, and there's no reason why it couldn't be you. And so hopefully these can be a few areas that can help you take on a couple of lessons that we've already experienced from other builders, and that you can then be able to take on to be able to potentially be one of those next unicorns. So I kind of thought about this and tried to get it down to like 4 key things that just made it super simple to be able to think about. Because obviously building a startup, you've got the typical journey of being able to hopefully have come across a problem through organic life, being able to realize that you can build a solution, work on building out initial product, testing it with that early audience, iterating with them, and developing a product that then ultimately has product market fit. And then you start raise funding, you scale, and you go through a traditional journey that's all very well known. These are then trying to focus on partially obvious, partially maybe not obvious, things to be able to just be aware of when you're building that can give you a little bit of edge, specifically within the Solana ecosystem. So I'll start with the first one of this idea of proof of work. Now, I consider that in these 3 areas, this idea of what wins you have, the quality of the team, the backers who are supporting you, just the sheer statistics and volume of users you have, and then are you doing any unique innovations? Generally, this is the idea that Superteam and Solana's are like, they focus on how that ecosystem, that community is like, what have you done? What's your proof of work? You know, I'm sure you guys have experienced this in Web3 as well, is like, it's a decentralized world. So what companies you've worked for isn't necessarily your biggest indicator. It's more about what you've accomplished. And when you're communicating with people and talking about it, that is what's going to be at the forefront. And usually as an early stage founder, you can't really like use your company name yet as that initial, when you're speaking to somebody, as like, oh yes, you should listen to me and not listen away. You're going to have proof of work, and understanding what yours is, what is your story, is then something that can be really helpful. And these are the ways that I would try and communicate that within the Solana ecosystem to allow them to understand, I'm talking to this type of person. I need to be able to make sure I'm paying attention. And starting with wins, within the Solana space, not all wins are the same. And the biggest one you could have is, from a startup point of view, is Colosseum. It's the biggest startup competition that happens. Arguably, it's one of the biggest hackathons in crypto as a whole. But specifically, I don't call it a hackathon. I call it a startup competition because Colosseum have raised a 60 million fund. They invest twice a year into 10 startups, $250K each. And I gave you the alpha there. It's roughly around 7%. Depends on the company, and it's all very subjective. But that's roughly what it is. And it gives you now that ability to walk into any partnership conversation because it's very well known. It's been running for over 4 years now. Initially, the team that were running it, Maddie, were inside the Solana Foundation, and they were running the internal hackathons. And then they spun out to be able to launch Colosseum. So this is one of the biggest bangs for your buck in being able to, as a very new team, get known in the Solana ecosystem. It literally will make all of those partnership conversations a lot easier. It will start opening doors. It will give you that initial distribution and exposure. And it's a very good next step. You're luckily, for all of you here, the next one's just started. So they just teased it yesterday. It's called Colosseum Frontier. It goes until May 11th. And so you have that time in order to wrap up your submission and get in. There isn't really like a submission. It's basically you just give them your latest pitch deck, your demo video, your GitHub, and you tell them about you, what you've built, why you discovered this, why it's a big opportunity. And each of the different local super teams can also be there to support you in that. So if you're in any country, there's over 20 countries now. You can just go to superteam.fun and you can see on the website all the different regions. They're designed to be able to help support and connect the dots there because they've worked with, like we literally had the Colosseum, the main judge, speaking on our global sync just before this last hour. So it's a really good spot for you to guys get that edge and get that big win. Now, other type of wins that you could be able to get or ways to be able to think about your proof of work is actually, I want to just mention about the team. So everyone you hire, your founder, users, founders, anyone you bring in, they're representing you online. Crypto Twitter, I'm sure you've probably heard this before, but it is very impactful. And as you start to scale, you can also strategically think about that, where you can hire people known in the Solana ecosystem because they already have that exposure and trust with the space. I'll talk about a little bit later about the importance of IRL network, but these people have built that IRL network. They've already been able to establish those relationships. And the example I used here was Solflare, where they hired people like Quix and Maurice, who were already very well known. And by bringing those into the team, you've not only brought like someone high quality to work with you, but they're now a very powerful voice in the ecosystem. And having this like version of like affiliates when you're then growing that team, so everyone can then build that. And then these types of people who are active in crypto Twitter, who can actively just post about you when things are happening, give you that local distribution. You know, when you do a tweet, we always have from Superteam UK side, everyone on our team retweets it, because then it gives you that initial little boost that you need, but also you've got all of those personal networks that are there. So when you're bringing that team, just being mindful of like what's their relationship in the ecosystem and how can you be able to use that, as well as yourself, this like founder-led marketing. I'll talk about it a little bit later on about this idea of going direct, but then this is something that is very powerful. I've got there, and I'll have throughout the slides a few different QR codes. I've got this one here, which is like a Twitter list to follow. And I'm sure we'll send through all the slides and I can give all the different links later on as well if you're on mobile. But then this will be a way where you can just do like the simple follow, comment, and the big game I like to play there is I want to comment. I want them to like it. That's my first win. Then I want them to go reply to it. That's my second win. And then I want them to follow me. And then I want them to start engaging with my content. If I can be able to do that with the people on this type of list, that is how I'm getting that exposure. And it's also, I can tell my team that as well. Because remember that if you're one of your team members rambling on crypto Twitter, engaging, they will then be able to help get you more distribution when you have a big announcement. Because if they randomly got Toli to like their tweets and start following them, when you do that next product update, Toli could see it. And he could then engage with it. And he does this typical quote retweet and 3 emojis. And it's stuff like that, which come very organically. And you never know, but by instrumenting a few of these practices, you can be able to get there. So that proof of work from the team that you have and the story that you can say of like, oh, I've got this person on my team, I've got this person on my team, and then they know who they are, is very powerful. And then if you don't have that yet, or if you're not ready to hire, just growing your own founder brand through this point of view is then how you can then have that for yourself. Yeah, I have a question.
Sorry, just a quick question on the affiliate. So let's say I'm a project and I'm launching on Solana. Is this something that we'd need to pay for? Like, how exactly do you get like the people in the Solana ecosystem to just organically support you?
So the affiliate specifically here is if you have like a gold profile in X, which costs a pretty penny, but once you've done initial funding, it's a good ROI. And then being able to just have all your team members on it. Usually, like when you look at other products, so you've got stuff like BonkBot as an example. They have paid people to be affiliates for them. And you see this a lot on like the trading side, where they will sponsor somebody to be able to do a series. It's almost like you think about them on retainer as a creator. And you would pay for that as like you would pay for any creator to do series. Most important thing there, the creator has to like your product. They can't just be doing it. They should have that buy-in. It should make sense for them. They should already be a user. And you're actually just saying to them, hey, like, we've loved seeing your content as well. We want to be able to do this officially. And you're giving them that stamp of approval. I do think that's an interesting return when you are able to get to that scale. Probably not in the very initial one, but once you're like going to seed and you're going beyond that, is probably some good ROIs that you can be able to get through the right people to better bring on. And then usually the way I find this is about having your team listed on that. And then, sometimes with these strategic ones, you can bring on those type of affiliates and ambassadors.
Yeah, that makes sense. Perfect. Thank you.
Cool. Speaking on that line of different people, one of the other big areas that is very respected across any startup, but it's not ununique for Solana, is the people of Tech. So the investors that you have. And I think this is important for when you're thinking about when you're raising your round, who are the names that you want there. Now, Solana has a very active angel scene, as well as it has a very active like fund scene. So thinking about who in your specific niche are the big like names that you want to be joining that cap table, and who are then the angels who you think will be able to jump onto that as well. So I think there's a few different companies. I got like Arcium and Raikou here who have quite nice cap tables. Arcium specifically because of all the angels that they have. And it's a really good way that you can look at other just public cap tables and see the different people who have invested into them. And then Raikou I got here because they did a very quick pre-seed and then seed. And an interesting story which they had there was when they were raising that pre-seed, they first closed a couple of these funds, then used the leads of the funds to then close the angels. So it's kind of then that like setup where depends on what stage you're at and who you know and those relationships. But one thing I really liked what they did was once they had those couple confirmations from those initial investments, so Big Brain and Figment, they then had on their second slide of their pitch deck, like different contrast color. So the rest of their pitch deck was more dark tones. This was white. And it literally said, we've got these funds already participating. It mentioned names like Anza. So Anza are on the Solana side, they spun out of Solana Labs and they handle a lot of the infrastructure. So if you're doing any infrastructure team and you're working with Anza and you have Anza employees angel invested into you, huge signal. And so then they were like, hey, we've already got these big funds back us. We're already working with these big names in the ecosystem. Like we're already further ahead. It was hilarious to see the angels who would then be like, yes, please please take my money. And it was because they'd already got those couple of big names that they were then able to then go through and onboard a bunch of angels with them. And then those angels are the type of people who would like Num from Bonk is a good example of somebody who has a very good long history in the Solana ecosystem, very well trusted. If he's on your cap table, you instantly create a lot of trust with people. And that's how I would think about when you're doing your fundraise is make sure you have allocation for these angels and think about strategically who those key people would be and look at previous cap tables in order to understand, do they like and invest into your current niche and space? It's one of the biggest ways that, again, you're building that proof of work on Solana to have people like trust and back you. The angels don't 100% necessarily get the funds to invest into, but it will 100% get the users or get the community or the people who are then looking to be able to help support. So I've got a couple like market maps here that could be interesting to find your niche. And then you can look at the funds who have invested into those top companies and the angels who have backed them as well. The one on the right is by the grid. It's probably like one of the biggest market maps that you would be able to find on Solana. And then the other one's like Masari's typical one, which is a bit more curated and it's on their typical reports. So have a little look at these different market maps, find your niche, look at the teams who have backed those cap tables, and then specifically here, look at the angels and find like commonalities between them because they're probably really good people to be able to go after. If you want a good place to start, I think Arcium's cap table for angels is stacked. So it's a good place to be able to start. Now, once we then, like you're launching, you're growing, one of the biggest things that you can do as well to be able to get that proof of work is just numbers. Numbers speak louder than words. The statistics that you have are very powerful to convey to people where you're at. And I actually don't like it when you do this too soon. I think sometimes whenever you get like the typical bio, and the typical bio is like, I've got 1 million, I've got 100,000 users, I've got 50,000 users, or this number of wallet addresses. It's like you have to think about it tastefully, and you have to allow somebody to have built that story of like, how this has all come together. And one of the easiest ways to like cut through any like, is this a bio real or not, is using analytic dashboards like Blockworks and Dune. Having just those screenshots in your pitch deck is a very strong way to be able to convey to them, no, this is real data. I haven't made this up. These are real users. And even internally, you being able to look at those dashboards and saying, well, how are we growing here? Is a strong way to be able to communicate that you have the statistics. You have been able to get there. Like, I don't know if you saw earlier on. So these are from Blockworks. And by having someone else's data here, as a way, it creates that bit of trust. And I've seen teams be able to do this where they're showing their user data on Dune from the wallets that are connecting and all of this. And it creates that like nicer picture for somebody. And this is then something where on the Solana ecosystem, you can show that value. Blockworks specifically have this thing called REV, real economic value. And from Solana Foundation side, this is a very big metric to grow. So if you are specifically looking at, and if you can apply into this, and I'll have a little bit more research into it, see if it applies to you. But then this is a very strong statistic to kind of like show, specifically within the Solana ecosystem, that you're helping grow the network and you're helping grow the economic value that's there. Similar to the app revenue number, that's another big number and statistic that they want to see grow. This is another area. So real economic growth and real economic volume and app revenue are two big numbers that if you can show that your startup is contributing towards in the Solana ecosystem, it fits into the narrative and story of the internet capital markets and network being created there. So just showing how you've hit those and using external dashboards to do that is a nice way to be able to approach it. We will actually do a workshop with Dune in April, and they're going to give away 1 month free worth of their premium software to people to attend. So then that would be a fun one if you don't currently have it, haven't explored it yet, to be able to see. And then the last one in this idea of proof of work is just the simple idea that if you're actually building something new that no one's seen before, the ecosystem loves that. And there's a real solid value there. The way I would approach this is you want to document that journey and you want to be able to create screen record videos. The specific software, I think it's called Screen.studio, where it does the zooms in and it has like a bit of a blur around the thing as well. But then this is like a really strong way where you just constantly show the updates that you're building for it. And you can build a very strong relationship with your ecosystem, crypto Twitter, by showing that development as it goes on. We had one of our founders do this very well. His name's Z. He was building a NFT perps back in 2023, but then pivoted and just took a side gig and did like an airdrop checker app. That then went completely viral. It was just at the time airdrops were coming in, Jupiter was doing it, Piff was doing it. So he just created easy value. Someone put in their wallet address and they could see if they're eligible for airdrops or not. He then just constantly updated what he was doing, listening to that community, iterating, posting about what then he just changed. He went from 2,000 followers to 18,000 followers within 3 months on Twitter, purely because he was just doing these videos and showcasing that. So I think it's a really good habit to be in of when you've shipped something new, do a little screen record and post that with a couple bullet points on what you've then been able to change and update. And find the right format that works for your audience. But by consistently doing these creates this allure that you're a shipper. And Solana loves shippers. Z was then able to use that brand he now built as an incredible shipper. And he was already planning this with his NFT platform, but he had an NFT collection he wanted to launch. He was then able to launch that NFT collection and raise over 2 million, probably after NFTs are already dead in early 2024, because everyone was buying it saying, I support Z, Z's a shipper. The dev ships, like that relationship that you have with the developer and how they ship is a very strong narrative in the Solana system. You saw a similar thing happen with Tensor. So back in 2020 to 2023, the main marketplace was Magic Eden. And Magic Eden for the NFTs was like dominating. However, it didn't have a lot of advanced trading analytics. The two Tensor devs, two technical co-founders, noticed this, and they built Tensor, which then became the #1 marketplace on Solana, and it has more volume now than Magic Eden does. That only happened, the David and Goliath story, simply because people saw the story and they liked the backing, the shippers. So these two technical co-founders, they were shipping, they were sharing what they were doing, constantly taking that journey forward. And then they was able to attack and grab all that market share. So I think this is a really nice narrative to think about. If you are actually building something innovative, post what you're doing. That's one of the strongest proof of works that you can be able to have. So when someone looks at your feed, they can see that, wow, like almost every single day you're posting a new update. it creates that image in their mind that you're a very strong developer. I don't have to look at your GitHub and find your actual commits for that, but I can just see on your timeline that you've been shipping. So I think these are some of the strongest ways that you can be able to convey that proof of work within the ecosystem through the wins like Colosseum, through your team also talking about you, through these key backers and angels, through the statistics and verifying them with third parties, and then being able to build this like shipping mentality and brand around what you've been able to do. So that's then the first point of unlocking distribution. Happy to answer any questions as I go. I'll wait to the end. But if there's no initial questions, I can jump on to the next one, which is all about partnerships. So it's pretty obvious, but in general, having these partnerships is a very strong way to, again, break through that noise of like, you're a new project. How do I know to trust you? And Solana is a collaborative place. Like, people do want to support one another. So don't try and build in a silo. There's likely someone who's built an adjacent product or something that can integrate in what you've done. And working with them is a very strong way to be able to initially break through the noise. There's a couple examples of different products you can do. But the first one is like a product-based one. I want to tell a quick story of Vanish. So you can see on the right now, they've got integrated in with Titan. Titan's one of the new dexes that are coming up, kind of battling Jupiter. And Titan have now integrated in Vanish. So if you ever want to do a private swap on Titan, you use Vanish themselves. So that's a huge new distribution platform for Vanish. But Vanish was able to do their round. So they had Solana Ventures invest into them, Colosseum invest into them, Big Brain Holdings, bunch of really big people. They got this same partnership, the same type of deal with Axiom. Axiom being the fastest company coming out of YC to reach over $1 billion in revenue. And they then used that single partnership to close that round, to bring on all these people. That was their initial actual like drive forward. Now, when I've spoke to the founders, that partnership actually didn't drive them a lot of revenue. You know, it's kind of like hidden away. It didn't exactly, like, the UI wasn't perfect. So revenue-wise for the company, it wasn't that big. Publicly, and in these like circles speaking to investors, it was huge. It was that FOMO. It was that proof of work. It was that like, wow, you guys are onto something, that allowed them to have a lot of smooth conversations here. And they were just an exclusivity agreement for a period that just expired. So now they've been able to introduce Titan into this. And now there's no possible exclusivity, and they're going to start going around to a bunch of different applications, adding in them to themselves. So that was, I think, like a nice example of like partnerships can really kind of like break through the noise a lot for you. Then if you're on the other side, and so this is an example here of like just a product launch, being able to leverage their social clout. So you can see here, tokenized GBP, one of the first British stablecoins that are registered by the FCA. They are growing in Solana, and they've been able to leverage Loopscale, who are one of the main DeFi platforms. And they've just launched a vault onto their platform. Now Loopscale is promoting them and kind of sharing that story. Now that's giving TGBB a lot of new exposure into those audiences. And again, the same with the Vanish and Titan. So they're very simple, but they do give you that exposure into new audiences. And as the example with Vanish, with the right partnership, it can actually really meaningfully change every other part of conversations and proof of work that you have. There's tons of other types. You know, you've got marketing-based ones where you're creating content together, doing events together, live stream spaces. I encourage you to get out to as many as you can. A lot of people talk about with spaces, for example, you can just jump on, request to speak, just do that a couple times a day, and, you know, you're starting to get your name out there a little bit. Going to events and engaging is a powerful one. And that's why I kind of have here of like, if you attend any events and you're talking about your experience at the event, you could then get picked up. You know, like one of the classic ones is you go to the event, you create a really good video or just even just a nice social post of a photo of what's going on, nice and busy, selfie of you and somebody and a good piece of copy. That, as an event organizer, I do tons of events. I love that. Thank you for doing that. I can retweet that to show UGC what's going on. if you do that at these different Solana events, and again, I'll talk about IRL network next, you are then encouraging everyone who's sponsoring or co-hosting that event to retweet your piece of content. That could have nothing to do with your startup at all, but it's getting you exposure in the ecosystem. When they click on your profile, they will then see you're building X startup. That can then create distribution into what you're doing. And it just in general grow your personal brand and awareness through people who are there. And again, that trust is very important that you can get. There's obviously tons of different things I mentioned about grants and competitions. Always try and like post and communicate when you've been able to win these or get these opportunities, because it just shows how you can then be able to build that proof of work, but also it'll get them to retweet you. So this one from Colosseum, Unruggable, one of our founders, got their grand championship last time. Really solid post. That now gave him 35K views because Solana retweeted it, Colosseum retweeted it, and if they didn't post about their win themselves, they just kind of retweeted the announcement, they would have lost all of this exposure on their main account. So I think it's like simple things, but these types of like content community ones can help you get more exposure. And then these product ones can be really impactful for being able to build those relationships across the board. And as we can then continue that theme, this idea of like Solana is very much an IRL community. So being able to meet people in person and come to the events is one of the strongest ways that you can build trust with people. So each of the super teams, we have like a member group. That member group is like the heart of the super team. And one of the biggest differentiating factors that we have for like who gets into that group is trust. And do we trust you to be able to be a part of that group and represent the brand that we have? We have like a barrier of like, well, you have to be present IRL somewhere in order to then attain that trust and actually create that. So I highly recommend you try and find that tribe in the Solana ecosystem, whether it's locally or internationally. There's a lot of different events, and I've got QR codes in the next one to kind of take you to a few different calendars where you can be able to attend. Like yesterday, they had one in New York, a FinTech Summit. Next month, there's going to be in Miami. You just had MonkeDAO happen in Salt Lake. You've then also got all of the super teams in 20 plus different countries around the world. Places like I do the UK, but across Europe, there's Germany, there's the Balkans, there's Portugal, there's Spain. There's, if you go across into Asia, there's Malaysia, China have Solar. You've got all different spots where you can then be able to find local Solana events happening, and then you can start building that network with those people. There's also different communities like MonkeDAO that you can join, and you can just, they're right now like 2 Sol online, but you get access to that entire ecosystem. MonkeDAO being one of the longest growing for ages, so there's a lot of OGs there. That's a very quick way to build up that proof of work. Slap that as your PFP. Now you're Solana based on crypto Twitter as well. I just saw Madlads went down to 10 Sol, so that's a good one to be able to get into. So you can also use those communities which are still alive and breathing. And MonkeDAO do a lot of IRL events as well, where you can be able to meet the people in the ecosystem too. So I do think this is a very important one. The only other thing I would add into this, if you're able to get into the right rooms, you get access to that founder dinner. You get access to this sponsor event. You're speaking, and maybe you go to the sponsor dinner. Those are a very strong way to be able to be growing out that brand as well, because anyone you speak to there instantly is like, you even made it into this room. This is a good room to be in. So there's extra like emphasis on like these IRL networks that you can be able to create and getting into the right rooms. Again, very typical type of thing that you would see across other ecosystems, but Solana especially so. Here are then those few different calendars. The one on the left is a Superteam one. So this is where like globally, you'll find all the different Superteam events. It's just lu.mar/Superteam. The other one is the Solana events. So this is solana.com/events. And you'll see all the main ones hosted by Foundation. And then there's a community calendar on Luma, just on that page as well. And last one is then just the event page. So the Solana events handle is very active. What I mentioned before around that type of, if you engage with a piece of content or you engage with an event and you create content around it, this handle is very active. So if you tag them and it's a good piece of content, they'll probably retweet it. And then this handle has been going for years. And so there's so many Solana known people who follow it that if you can consistently show on some of these, it can be a very strong way to be able to build up reputation. So IRL events, very powerful, very important. And the last one that I want to talk about is this idea of going direct. Now, this I stole from, last year, there was an NCO summit that happened at Solana Foundation's offices in New York. And it was a new term that was brought up, NCMO, because the CMO for Solana Foundation, Akshay BD, he was like, I don't think a blockchain foundation should have a CMO. The ecosystem is the CMO. Everyone is active in promoting what's going on. So this idea of non-CMO came up, and he specifically talked about this idea of going direct. And the key here is when you're wanting to like scale out and grow, focus on building that internal media team. So I see a lot of startups, as they try and initially grow out, if they get a bit of funding, they'll hire an agency to do a lot of the work for them. I think you should try and flip this and really try and focus internally on how you can build that machine, which can create its own content, and bringing people in-house to be able to manage that and run that. But this is something where you as the founder will have unique context that an agency will never quite get. And you'll be in conversations, you'll be in the ecosystem. So creating that type of content around what you've seen and that authenticity and context is incredibly powerful. So whether you're doing it across text, video, or different events, I would think about going direct. And that's how you kind of like plan out that marketing strategy. This idea of like getting retweets from key accounts happens when you go direct and you design content around them. So I do this all the time with Superteam UK. Anytime we tweet something, I'm thinking about who's retweeting this, who's engaging with that. And I try and design it so that a big name would want to engage with it. I don't always get my Solana retweet. I have to think about that. I have to know what the main handle wants, what they're looking for. Is it something they'll engage with? And I think that's important for you to be able to think about as well, even from a user perspective, or like, will my users engage with this? Will my partners engage with this? And having that context and authenticity is the most important way to like actually know if it's something that the audience wants. My way that I would think about this, and this QR code there takes you to a bunch of tips from the social media lead at Foundation for how they would be growing it out. Really good Google Doc kind of explaining a bunch of things. The high level things is you've got to be able to capture attention, typical scrolling world. So if you don't capture that initial attention in the first couple of seconds, and it literally is like 2 to 3 seconds max, then you'll just get scrolled on and you'll go. One way I've been like testing this in the copy side of things, not in the video, that first line that you have that a bit contrarian, have that a bit different, have it like, rather than saying, this cup of coffee is great, it's all coffee is shit, this is the best. And it's subtle, but it changes then scroll stopping somebody as they're going through, because people were attracted to a bit of the negative than the positive. And you don't want to like push a negative. That's not good for it, just have out in the ecosystem. But you just want to kind of use that understanding in that initial first line. Just be able to make sure you capture their attention so they'll read whatever else you have left. Because you don't capture their attention, they're not going to read anything else. Then when you are creating like visuals, whether it be graphics or videos, one important thing here is like, what is the visual hook? I saw something hilarious that was like, when people have been creating like shorts and like TikToks and YouTube videos, they would be making something while they were doing it. And that making something while they're doing it is just catches someone's eye. So think about those visual hooks, and then basic stuff like don't be boring, be engaging, be fun, be consistent. Like this idea of engaging with people and following up on them, being very consistent is important. And then experiment, try different things, see what works, see what doesn't, and then use that to be able to find your way. And then the last one is like, I see this happen where people won't share their tweet when they post, but I highly encourage, anytime you tweet something that you want to get some engagement behind, just put it into a group chat somewhere, share it to a few different places. You'll get that initial exposure, because the algorithm will rarely like start boosting you from the get-go. You can need to create that a little bit. So sharing in the group chats, making sure other people see it, there's a good way to be able to do that. And then these are then my last little resources to look at. There's a really good like media guide here. So when you're then thinking about beyond just internal media, like PR and what you can do there, This breakdown is really good. Basically says that you want to do exclusives. So offer someone an exclusive to do the press release of your big announcement, and you're guaranteed to have one piece. And it tells you a bit more about how to land those. There's also this directory of creators. So when you are going to launch, working with Solana native creators to be able to help create the content around it. Here's a really good list of people who have been vetted that you can be able to go to. And then the last one there is kind of like a bit of an alpha document, but it's how to get the Solana main handle to retweet you. And it's specific, straight from Foundation, their guidelines of what they will do, what they won't do, who to contact. And so if you ever want to do like a big announcement or get Solana main handle to retweet you, that you can just scan that document and it will give you the outlay. So they're my top tips. I'll give you a second to scan any of those. So we'll probably like be able to share this around to you as well, so you'll be able to catch up afterwards too. But there we go. That's what I'd focus. So if you're building on Solana, remember like that kind of like story of internet capital markets that you want to create. Think about these 4 areas of what's your proof of work, what partnerships are you going to land, what events are you going to go to, how are you going to build this like internal media agency to go direct, and you'll be very successful. Thank you for listening. Welcome any questions.
That is a fantastic presentation, Cap. I'll be honest. I've made some notes as well on the just on all of the main points, I think, and I'm going to ping them in the accelerator chat. But no, that was honestly, I didn't expect that to. I know you sent me the presentation. I flicked through and it was good, but like I didn't expect the insights on top of it. No, that's in terms of fundraising, in terms of building in public. That is a very, very, very times 10 more times. I don't want to say it so people wouldn't just mute me, but very key point in terms of building in public and showing the fact that you're shipping as a dev is phenomenal. I had sick, amazing, perfect. Yeah, I'll add that into the little notes as well. I just had one question, and it is, obviously you guys are the Superteam UK, right? And I'm kind of more so asking this for the rest of the cohort, but you guys are the Superteams. What's your relationship, if you will, with the main foundation? And kind of, let's say I'm a founder, I join, Superteam UK, I go to all the events, I participate in the Colosseum. How, like, would I get then support from the foundation, or is the foundation doesn't really get involved and it's the Superteams? Like, can you just touch a bit more on the relationship there?
Yeah. So Superteams, we get an annual budget from Solana Foundation every single year. We're like their new markets team, just in a more decentralized way. So depending on the lead, depends on their relationship, because it's all individual. The Solana Foundation is basically, from your perspective, from any founder's perspective, is broken up in, you've got BD leads who look after certain verticals. And then as a Superteam lead, your relationship is very individual with each of these BD leads. So we're not necessarily in the Slack with everybody, but I because I've been doing it for a long while, I know everyone because I've met them in person. I have them on Telegram. I do have them on Slack. Like, I've kind of built that relationship. Certain leads may not have that exactly. So it is a bit individual. But if there's anything that we can be able to do, is that we can funnel people into Foundation as well. And then we also get resources and have that communication directly with them. So we kind of act as that bridge between the ecosystem and Foundation. So we're one of the strongest ways to get into them and to have that trust. And then, as I said, there's a few different things that we're privy to that aren't exactly fully public. So that one that I had around, so these couple documents here, specifically, like I'd say the one on the right, which is the distro one, it's not like public document that anyone will be able to see on how to get the Solana main handle to engage with you or that process. So it's things like that that we're privy to that we can be able to unlock for people. So Solana is more than just the foundation. It is the ecosystem. Again, it's probably different to other blockchains where they're still a lot smaller. Solana's very big, growing, and that's why I had partnerships here as well. Working with other ecosystem teams is one of the strongest ways that you're able to grow. And the foundation just serves a singular purpose of supporting public goods. And we can then be able to be a bridge to be able to help amplify and distro. And we can connect you up to the right people if it's the right fit and if you have the right proof of work that justifies it.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Amazing. And On that note, there was also one other question that I think might be of interest. There's a project here, or a couple of projects rather, that are building their own chains as well, and they are considering becoming more of a layer 2 on someone else's layer 1. And obviously you have, Avalanche, Polkadot, and they literally facilitate that. But how would that look on Solana, if that's even something worth considering?
So there have been L2s on Solana before. You'd look at like SVMs, like Sonic, as an example. But you're basically building on top of SVM. I wouldn't say it's incredibly popular, considering you can do a lot of what you want to on the Solana mainnet anyway. There's probably, maybe Bulk is probably a good example, where they're not an L2. And there's actually a really interesting debate that was happening online recently about this, where they're helping improve transaction speeds for perps specifically. And the way that they're doing that is Solana validators install the bulk Agave client, and then validators that are using them are then helping process the transactions faster. And they can get down from the 120 microseconds to 20 microseconds per transaction. And they aren't necessarily contributing to the layer 1, the real economic value yet, because not all validators are using them. There's only a subset of validators that are using them. So it's kind of like they're in that middle ground, right? Where they're not a whole new L2, but they're also not fully contributing to the entire mainnet L1, because they're not on every single validator. And there was this good parallel with Jito. Jito have Jito tips, and basically every validator is using Jito tips. And so that was they crossed the threshold where they were included in what real economic value is for the network. So I think it would be around defining just in general, what's the purpose of the startup, or what's the purpose of the chain? Do you need L2? Can you use things like mechanisms like this, which can then allow you to still build on top of Solana and benefit from the ecosystem? Or should you be able to find and align yourself with another space that works better?
Okay, amazing. Perfect. Thanks for that. And yeah, I've been kind of hogging the mic here, so if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to ask away. I'll give it a second, just so we're not sitting here.
I see Chris has a question in the chat. Would you guys like a layer 2 that dragged a few tens of millions of users at launch?
Chris, I don't know if you want to expand it.
So Cap, you're laughing like I'm joking, and I'm not. Alex can vouch.
I'm not. I'm thinking on the way that would then work. But would you describe? You can potentially describe to me.
So our company, Relief Financial, has an entirely new blockchain technology. We call it proof of intent. It operates on smartphones and turns smartphones into third-party transaction authenticators for basically anything. We're starting out in digital payments, but we plan on actually being the authentication layer for all human content as we all move into Web 4.0, and the entire world is filled with agentic digital gray goo. So what we do is, if you wanted to confirm that some transaction had an authentic human behind it, you dump it to the network, and we use third-party smartphones from tens of millions of users to authenticate those transactions. It's sort of like third-party authentication. So instead of two-factor authentication, we're adding context as the third factor in authenticating transactions. Your place in space and time.
That kind of sounds like to me what this looks like, if that would be correct, where there's then value that can be created because you can be able to create that connection into the mainnet and that validation there. So yes, there would be value created there. This is something that was Contra has been built internally within the Solana Foundation, specifically for enterprises, so that they can then be able to have a bunch of these typical things that they want to have within it, but still would then be contributing to the economic value of the mainnet. So creating a system like this would work.
So we're selling to and through developing world telcos. And so as we launch, say with Claro in Colombia, on day one, we drag in 24 million users.
And then that's almost like similar to how Helium works with and sells their network coverage to different telecom companies.
It's very much a merger of DPIN, DeFi, EIO, all of it.
And then what stage are you at? So right now, are you deciding what ecosystem to work with? It sounds like you want to be quite comprehensive anyway.
We're developing right now. We are picking chains to develop on. Solana's been high on the list of who we want to go with. We already have signed customers, so we're the dog that chased the car and caught it, and now we have to figure out what to do with the car that we caught.
Yeah, there's definitely like a pathway there. I think this contra even just diagram kind of helps display that a little bit. This, I can send you this as well if it'll be interesting. This is Solana Foundation's like kind of like product list of things that they're looking at. One that I didn't have in the main slides is the improvement of the stack in general as well. So with FiDancer, it's already been tested to have over 1 million TPS. So that's not performance grade just yet, but it's kind of showing the direction things are going in. Alpenglow is coming out this year, so that'll be out actually in like a month or two. And then that's going to get finality down to 150 microseconds. And so there's a lot of work going on to consistently make sure that Solana is, right now it's still leading on a lot of metrics, and to be able to make sure that it's consistently getting stronger and being faster, continuing to be cheaper. And it's the one ecosystem that's been battle tested the most. In terms of like, sounds like you'll be doing a lot of transactions, and you need a high throughput. Solana does more transactions than every other ecosystem combined, and it has done for a very long while. So it's the most battle tested there to be able to make sure that it can do what you want it to do, and it won't be blocking you from growing your business and getting more cars to be able to have.
That's why you're on our hit list.
I have just a kind of follow up. If anyone else has a question, please just unmute and ask. And if not, then I have one more final question from my side. Give it a second just to see if anyone unmutes.
I've got a question.
Please
go for it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Is there any noise in the background? Sorry, I'm in a loud place.
That's all right.
Good stuff. Yeah, one question from me. Early on in the talk, you mentioned about like IRL network, obviously, and your online persona. So a lot of us have different personas online. One thing that I'm seeing a lot of now is LinkedIn, and everyone has a LinkedIn. I myself, I've just been like chronically online and Web3 for about 5 years, and I've built all my network through my alias online. How much emphasis do you actually think there is on LinkedIn? Because you can have an absolute success, like I've done it online, building the stuff that I've built via my alias, but not through a public LinkedIn profile. Do you think it's actually a deterrent these days, or are there any benefits to it?
I mean, it's a good thing to notice and to be thinking about. Generally, I think it's more on the institutional side. So if you're building in DeFi, I don't think LinkedIn is going to help you per se. It's more for if you're working with institutional type clients, where the LinkedIn, which is their native platform, where they're more popular. There was an interesting thing that we were learning because this year, Superteam UK started growing more in the institutional, so like financial institutions, asset managers, and doing different events for that space. And what we noticed was that like there's like different rules that they just have. Like I've never worked in a corporate company, so I didn't know this, but in their offices, there'll be certain addresses that are like whitelist that they can't use, like in school, that you can't be able to go onto. One of the ones that isn't is LinkedIn. So it's one of those social platforms that they can easily be able to use, and it is very more popular in those spheres. There was also lessons there where it was like, well, you can't have two regulated companies in the same group chat because it could be seen as collusion. And that was meant that like, well, I was like, oh, we should start like a corporate Slack, and they can, everyone we're meeting at community events can be able to come to the Slack, similar to what we do for the Telegram groups for the rest of the community. And they was like, no, you can't do that. So we did a LinkedIn group. So a LinkedIn group, they can't communicate, but they can see what's being posted in it as a way, like a middle ground for that, because I still wanted my funnel. So I think it's very much more focused on the institutional side. If you're doing a lot of stuff in deep and Web3, your alias still works great. And growing on crypto Twitter in terms of growing established there would be far better than going onto LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. That's answer I hope for. Yeah, good stuff.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions from anyone?
I've got a bit of a question. But,
We're co-working. We're co-working.
co-working, living life. Quick question: in terms of like super teams collaborating with other super teams and projects trying to like expand globally, it would be good to actually hear your thoughts. Let's say there's a project based in Asia or the Middle East, and it spends some time in, like, a lot of crypto is decentralized, if you want, it is international. How would you go about finding that local chapter that can actually support you and choosing the right one? Is it would be good to hear your thoughts on that. Yeah.
So the tip from the Superteam side, the way that we typically approach it is, where is the founder based? So wherever the founder lives, that's the core one. Typically, because we do a lot of events, so the presence of the founder at these events is one of the big parts of like showing their commitment and engagement on our side, to then be able to validate for us being able to give back from our point of view. Now, you do see a lot of people being like founders in different cities, founders across super teams, and that's typically okay. You know, like, it's from our side, as long as we're working with a founder who's in our region, we're happy. You have found stories where certain founders haven't had as much support from one side and they've gone to another super team to get support. And that's just on a case-by-case basis and very dependent on the lead itself. Every super team is considered like individual sovereigns. We all independently get our funding from foundation. We all work together. We have a global sync. We all have different conversations with one another. We all know each other, but we independently operate. And so we independently are able to choose how we do that. So some super teams may be a bit more open. Some may be a bit more reserved. It depends on the stage and all of these other different factors within it. But typically it's focused on where the founder is, and then it's a case-by-case basis for how the super teams work. If, in a different example, you wanted to expand to a region, so you wanted to connect to a super team, very happy to do that. You know, like, a lot of the ways that you can then be able to tap in isn't directly asking for tons of like incubator support, which the super teams do, but more generally of like, hey, I want to grow in this region. Can we do this campaign together? They're usually very open towards these types of initiatives, as long as you're giving back to their community as well.
Okay, thank you. I think, yeah, that was something that's been on my mind for a while now.
Sweet. Then yeah, any other questions from anyone? Perfect. Okay. Then yeah, once again, thank you so much, Cap, for the absolutely amazing presentation, and also for showing the slides. That is very nice and useful. I've put a little summary, and yeah, I mean, if there's anyone that wants to reach out to Cap is in the chat. He's in the I tagged him in the little summary message, so please feel free to DM. I guess, I don't know if that's fine with you, Cap.
Yeah. Feel free to hit my DMs if you have any questions.
Yeah, amazing. And yeah, well, thank you very much. We'll upload this very soon, and we'll have it public on YouTube as well after the accelerator ends, because otherwise, what's the point? And thank you very much for joining once again, and hope you have a wonderful day.
Awesome. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, Cap.
Thank you. Cheers.